Hello, today we're going to have a look at ChatGPT's Code Interpreter, which is a new feature that was added about 2 weeks ago. It's currently only available for Plus subscribers, and I think it is only available in certain countries, so mainly the USA and the UK. Code Interpreter adds a whole other dimension to your ChatGPT use by allowing you to upload files and also allowing ChatGPT to create its own files. For example, PowerPoint presentations, Excel, Word. It can even manipulate images. When I first got access to Code Interpreter, I tried to find out more how I could use it for my life as a teacher. And I did find loads of videos about Code Interpreter, but they were all from a business or a data analysis point of view. So I'm hoping that with this video I can provide the teacher's perspective today and give you some ideas how to use it. I've also written a blog post on it, which you can find linked in the description. Code Interpreter allows you to interact with all these different file formats that you can see here. I could not find an official page by OpenAI on this, maybe because it's still in a beta phase, but online I saw this one shared, and I have tried at least all the Office products on here, like a PowerPoint. I've also tried it with PDF and MP3s. So it can interact with all these kinds of files. So first of all, I'm going to show you how you can enable them, and then I'm going to show you some great use cases for teachers. First of all, you need to log into your ChatGPT account on chat.openai.com. And as I said before, you need to have a Plus subscription. So to enable Code Interpreter, you first need to go to your settings. They are down here in the left-hand corner. You click on it, go to settings, then you go to beta features, and then there you can turn on Code Interpreter. So if you can't see this box here, then unfortunately you are in a country where it hasn't been rolled out yet. So once you've turned it on, you can now in the main chat window click on GPT-4 up here, and then it should come up in the list here. So it's Code Interpreter there. And now you might notice that my chat window has this little plus here, which means I can upload a file. Let's try out what Code Interpreter can do, and because we are teachers, we want to prepare a lesson, of course. So let's put in our first prompt. So I'm a languages teacher, so my prompt is going to be, I'm going to teach a beginner class in German. They need to learn pets. Give me 15 words and phrases they need to know. So obviously I could put in some more background information about my class, but we'll keep it simple for now. Okay, so here is my next prompt. Write me a lesson plan and create a worksheet for the students to practice these words. Output it as a Word document. So it's starting to write me a lesson plan now. So quite quickly, it's giving me all these ideas for my lesson. Not necessarily the best, but it's a start. And now it's just creating the worksheet down here. But really what I wanted was a actual Word document. So normally before it starts creating a file, it will give you a little preview, which is actually very useful because it means you can stop generating and maybe give it some better prompts if you see that it has misunderstood. But actually this is quite a good start here with a little gap fill activity, a little vocab list that the students have to fill in, and it's even giving the English options, so that's quite nice. So let's see what it does. So down here we have now this working window that hides all the coding that's going on in the back. So if I click here on show work, I can see that it's using Python and lots of complicated code to get my worksheet done. Okay, and the really special thing about Code Interpreter is that it can correct itself and keeps going even if it encounters a problem. So for example, here it has got an error code, but instead of just saying I can't do it, it apologizes for the error, even though it's only apologizing to itself really, saying there's a problem with the code, and then it tries again. So that is the amazing thing, that it can check itself, it can debug itself, and doesn't just come back saying, I can't do it. So it's now doing another code, and now it's managed to put out this Word document. So let's download this. We can just open it in Word. Okay, and in this case, it has put the lesson plan into the Word document as well, and the worksheet. I mean, the worksheet is very, very short, but as I said, a bit more prompting, a bit more specific about how many phrases you want, or how many, what different types of activities you want, then it will put it out. And as you can see, it's using the kind of standard Word layout, so it's chosen one of the design themes here to make it look reasonably nice, but of course you can easily change the colors and fonts and so on if you want. I don't think you can at the moment specify certain colors or fonts while you're creating the worksheet, so those ones you have to add yourself afterwards, but it's relatively quick and easy. Okay, so now we've got our worksheet. Now we also want a PowerPoint presentation to show the answers for the worksheet. So let's have a go at that. Okay, so my prompt is now create a PowerPoint presentation that shows the answers for the tasks on the worksheet. Okay, so I've sped up the process a little bit, but in total it took probably less than a minute. And if I was in my classroom working, I could just do another task while this is working on creating this PowerPoint for me. So let's have a look if we've got the answers in here. Okay, here's our answer presentation. It's added a title, which is quite nice, and then it's split it up into two sections, which is also very useful that it hasn't tried to cram everything on the same slide. It's still quite small, so I would have to go into design and choose one here, or I can use the designer over here, which is quite useful. Yes, look at this. Designer has chosen us a nice pet picture as well, so perfect. So literally with just one little click on each slide, I can make it look so much better, and it sorts out any problems with the layout. If you don't want to click on each presentation individually, you could also choose one of the themes up here which apply to the whole presentation, which makes it even faster. All of this would obviously also work with worksheets that you've already got. So for example, I tried it with quite a difficult German grammar worksheet, which I had downloaded from the textbook, and I just wanted to have an answer presentation. So I uploaded the worksheet into ChatGPT Code Interpreter and asked it to give me the answers in a presentation, which it did. So it saved me lots of time. There are a couple of issues that you might run into with Code Interpreter. The first one is a really weird forgetfulness that it has. And it seems to keep mixing up the normal ChatGPT 4 with the Code Interpreter, which means that if you ask it to create a file, let's say here, make me a PowerPoint, it will sometimes just say, as an AI language model, I do not have the capability of creating files, which is the usual text that it says for ChatGPT 3 or ChatGPT 4. And all you need to do in that case is to just encourage it a little bit and nudge it along and say, yes, you can do it, or you've got Code Interpreter now, you can give me a PowerPoint. And with that little nudge, it will normally then say, oh yes, here's your PowerPoint, and then you can download it. So if it doesn't work the first time round, just remind it. Another slight disadvantage is that you can't combine Code Interpreter with any of the other plugins, and it's also not connected to the internet at the moment. I mean, web browsing, the web browsing feature at the moment is disabled anyway in ChatGPT 4, although you can still do it if you're using plugins. But once plugins, web browsing, and Code Interpreter are all enabled at the same time, I mean, oh my god, ChatGPT is going to be so amazing. Let's come to the area that is really the strong part of Code Interpreter, namely working with data and spreadsheets. So here are a few things that it can do, for example, in an Excel spreadsheet. So it can A, read the results that you have in your spreadsheet and turn it into text and analyze it. So for example, you could ask it, how did all the boys perform in this class? And it will look at the spreadsheet that you have uploaded, and as long as it's got the gender information, it can then filter them out and will say the boys did this and this much better than the girls in this class, and so on. It can also generate a new spreadsheet based on one that you've already got. So for example, you could say, in this spreadsheet, all the boys are from tutor group B and all girls are from tutor group A. So please add another column which shows their tutor groups. And again, it will spit out the same spreadsheet that you've put in, but add that extra column. It does not alter the original text file, so it will always create a new one. And also you need to be aware that any files that you upload or that Code Interpreter creates are only held on the system for about 30 minutes. So that means you have to download them in that time, so it will not be you will not be able to download them later on. And also, if you're sharing the link to your chat, then any files won't be included in that, or any images that it generates. One thing that is really good at is displaying your data in all kinds of different graphs, like pie charts or box charts and so on. And what is even more useful is that it is actually able to determine which type of graph is the most useful for your data. Because, for example, I didn't really know what a box chart was, or at least not that it had that name, before I uploaded my data, and ChatGPT decided that this is the best one. But I'm going to show you an example in a minute. And with each output that it gives you, it will also tell you what the different elements of it actually mean. And again, I'm going to show you the example. I've got the spreadsheet here, but don't worry, all these people are fake. So I did ask ChatGPT before to generate a load of fake student names and completely random results for my different units in my exam. So they all have got listening, speaking, writing and reading results in percentages, and then we've got the names and the genders. So let's go over here and upload it to ChatGPT. And now maybe I don't really know what I want to do with it. So let's ask it for some suggestions. Okay, so I'm uploaded it and I'm saying, what kind of interesting analysis could I do with this data about my class exam results? So it now takes the Excel file and reads it first. Then it gives me some ideas. So it could give me the overall percentage for all the different skills. I could see how they performed by gender, by tutor group, which areas are the strongest, so if they're better at listening and reading, and how the different areas correlate. Ooh, that's quite complicated. So I guess we could see if people who are good at listening also are good at reading or speaking and so on. Okay, let's try out two of them. So we'll try out the performance by gender and the correlation between different areas. Let's see what it comes up with. I'm asking Code Interpreter now, can you show me useful graphs for number 2 and number 5? And it will know that we are referring to number 2 and number 5 up here. Let's see what we get. Okay, great. Here we've got our first image. So these are the scores by gender for each of the different skills. So I can see straight away that, for example, the boys were a lot better at listening, but not as good as the girls on speaking. Writing, the boys were better again. Reading, the girls were better again. So obviously these results maybe don't reflect a real class because they were completely random. So in a real class there might be maybe more of a trend that might be quite useful. Oh, then it's given me a very complicated looking graph. Let's see if it's giving me some explanation. So it has given me a little overview here. So the box plot we already looked at was the one about gender. So let's see what the pair plot says. So the pair plot shows scatter plots for each pair of areas, which can help visualize the correlation between scores in different areas. For example, if points form a line from the bottom left to the top right, it indicates a positive correlation. If it's the other way around, it's negative. If they are scattered without any clear pattern, there is no correlation. Okay, so in this case, because they are random, there isn't really any correlation here, because they all look pretty spread out. But in a real class, we might see more of a trend there. But it is great that it's explaining what this actually means. So I could actually get it to write me a summary here as well. So my prompt is summarize the findings in these two areas. So here's my result. For example, it says listening, both genders show a wide range of scores, and the score for males appears to be slightly higher than for females, and so on. So it's analyzing all the different skills, and the correlation, the scatter plot suggests there's some degree of positive correlation. That means that students who perform well in one area tend to perform well in others, and vice versa, but there are many exceptions. Okay, and it indicates a diversity of skills. Well, yes, because the scores are completely random. I wanted to show you a trick how you can anonymize your spreadsheet as well, because obviously you don't really want to put your whole spreadsheet into ChatGPT, because it can be read by OpenAI, and even though it's only held on their system for 30 minutes, it can technically be used to train the computer model, and it probably breaks your school's privacy and data protection rules if you upload full student data to this system. So if we have a spreadsheet like this, first I would make a copy of it, which you're only going to use for uploading into ChatGPT. Then we add another column here. And now I want to turn all these names just into initials, for example. So I start typing the initials. So in this case is A and I, because it's Anderson Ivy. Then we've got B and I. And as soon as I start, it already suggests it with autofill here. If I click any key on my keyboard, really, it automatically fills it in. And now I've got all the initials. So I could now delete their actual names over here. And now I've got a spreadsheet that I can add into ChatGPT, and whatever it does with it afterwards, I can then just copy the output and add it back into my original spreadsheet if I want to. Or I can use it to analyze their results. Now that we have our spreadsheet here with all our homework results, I could use this in Code Interpreter to help me write my reports. So for my reports, I need to know how well the students have done in their homework and in their in-class assessments. And I've got all this data here, but my problem is that each of the columns is out of a different score, so it makes it quite hard to kind of get a quick overview, because if they've got 10 points for the first column, then that would be kind of a middle range grade. But if they get 10 in the second column, then that would be full mark. So it makes it harder to quickly compare this. So I can ask ChatGPT now to help me to get a better overview. And to make really sure that it does it correctly, I first ask it to transform all of these into percentages. So it makes it easier to compare both for me and for ChatGPT. Okay, let's upload this spreadsheet here, and we're saying this worksheet shows my class's homework results. Write me a short paragraph about the first 5 students, how they did in their homework so far. Keep it short, keep the total score for each column in mind, and A indicates that they were absent. I'm just asking for the first 5 students just to keep it a bit shorter here. And we will see if it realizes that the scores are different for each class, for each test. Okay, so let's have a look at the results. Compare with the spreadsheet. So student AI is struggling with the vocab. She got 0 in both. Okay, and then listening she got 85. So that is accurate. I remember that she had 0 marks. Let's have a look at the next one. So she was absent for the first test but scored a perfect 10 in the second test, the vocab on color. So let's check that over here. And yes, the vocab color is out of 10 and she did score perfectly. And next one, it's out of 16 and she got 11. So let's see. So she had average performance in those ones. Okay. So it's giving me a little text for each of my students, which would really be helpful when I'm writing my reports. And if you want to push this even further and help you even more with your reports, you could even add an extra column to each of the students and just put in a few details that you definitely want to include for each of these students. So for example, their effort in class, let's add that. Okay, so I've added a few comments here, like the first one I've put always on time, often distracted, which would match here the scores. The second one is always on time, works hard, struggles with grammar. And the third one is sometimes late, sometimes forgets homework, tries their best. Okay, so let's upload this new spreadsheet now and see if it can write us a little report. Okay, so now I've uploaded the spreadsheet again and forced ChatGPT to have a look at it again, so it notices the extra comments that I've put on. And now it's actually written me quite a good summary here. So for example, for the first student, in classwork, your child is always on time, which is commendable. However, there are instances of distraction that could be impacting their learning experience. So this is a really nice way how it changed it from often distracted to something that I could actually give to the parents. In homework, they demonstrate excellent listening skills but experience difficulties in the vocabulary tests. We encourage consistent focus during class and additional practice in vocabulary. So it has even written a little target for the student how they could improve in the future. So obviously, it depends very much on your school policy and your own attitude to AI, if you think that reports should be written by AI or not. And I suspect the amount of work and the number of students you have to write for also plays quite a big role. So if you get a bit stressed out and the deadline is getting closer, you might be more inclined to consider a little bit of help from AI. Another useful thing you can do with Code Interpreter is to get it to apply grade boundaries to your test results, which is great, especially if you have very large cohorts. So I'm going to show you one that I've made earlier. So first of all, I copied the grade boundaries from a PDF which was published by the exam board. So that's my prompt up here. So here are the grade boundaries from grade 9 down to 3, because that's how the grading works for GCSE, for example. So in a higher paper, the lowest grade you can get is a 3. And then I just pasted in the string of numbers from the PDF, and it looks quite messy here, but actually a Code Interpreter was able to work out what I meant by this and turned it into a nice table down here. And this way I can check that it has actually matched them up correctly. So now here is my next step. So I've got the grade boundaries and I'm going to upload that exam results spreadsheet again and tell it to apply those grade boundaries. So it's analyzing what is in the spreadsheet, it's analyzing the grade boundaries, and then it notices that the lowest score mentioned here is an 18. So it's quite handy that it asks me, how do you want to handle scores below 18? So I'm telling it to give it a U, so an ungraded. Okay, then it's doing lots of work, and as you can see, it has taken several steps here and it's giving me the first 5 people in my exam. So I can see what it will put out, and I can see over here it's given them grades, but I could see straight away that that can't quite be right, because with 57% you shouldn't be getting a grade 9, which would be the highest grade. So clearly something has gone wrong, But instead of telling it what has gone wrong, I just said, "Are you sure?" It then realized that it mistook scores and percentages, because in the grade boundaries up here, it's a score out of 50. So first it needs to convert it into percentages and then apply it to the spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet is in percentages. And I didn't even need to tell it, but it managed to work that out itself. So it apologizes, then realizes, and then does the whole task again. And now it applied the grades correctly over here. So now the first student got a 6, the second one a 9, then a U, and so on. I then prompted again, "Can you output this as an Excel sheet?" And then it gave it to me as an Excel spreadsheet. And I was then able to go through that exam sheet with all the grades. And in this case, I actually cross-referenced it, and I worked out the percentages and the grades for the first 5 students myself, just to check that it done it correctly, and all of them were now correct. I mean, there is still some level of danger in this, because it still does make some mistake sometimes. So if this is a really vital piece of information, so if this is actually a grade that is going on the students' reports, you probably still need to cross-reference it or cross-check it. But hopefully, over time, Code Interpreter will only get more reliable, so that we don't need to do this constant checking of the work. Let's come to something more fun that you can do with spreadsheets, namely making a Kahoot or another type of online quiz. So I'm on the Kahoot website here, and I've got the choice to make new questions. There is actually now an AI-assisted question generator within Kahoot, but unfortunately it's only available for Plus subscribers, so I don't have that. So I need to put in my own answers. And to make it a bit quicker, you can download one of these templates. So if I go into create blank, and then I want to add the questions, and I can go to import spreadsheet down here. So I can then download the template, which looks like this. So in here, it makes it a bit quicker. You can put in your question there and your 4 answers there. Then you put the timing at the end here, and you put whichever answer is the correct one in there. So this already speeds it up, but of course with Code Interpreter we can automate the whole thing by just putting this template into Code Interpreter and asking it to fill it with questions. I have found that there is a slight problem with this template, because it has this big area of text at the top here, which seems to make it quite hard for Code Interpreter to find where the actual column headings are, namely here question and so on. So I found the easiest way to get around this is to make a copy of this spreadsheet and delete the whole top bit, and then upload the simplified version into Code Interpreter, and it finds it much easier to fill it in. And then I can just copy the results and paste them back into this original spreadsheet. I found that for this to work well, you need quite a long detailed prompt. So I would recommend that once you've got a good prompt like this, that you save it on a spreadsheet somewhere or on a Word document and have it ready. So I've got my own little Notion sheet, which is like an online spreadsheet you can make. So I can easily find this prompt again and just copy it in next time I want to make a Kahoot about a different topic. In this case, our prompt here is, I want to create a Kahoot game about Mickey Mouse with 4 answers with only one of them correct, but not always answer 1. The time limit for each question should be 30 seconds. Finally, there should be a column indicating which answer option is the correct one. Save the result as an Excel file. And then I'm uploading this Kahoot template, but the simplified version without the purple bit, so it can see what I want and in which order I want it in. So it's giving me the first question and it's showing me the kind of question it's going to give. Yes, that sounds good. So I'm saying now make the quiz. Now we've got our file that we can download. Let's have a look at it. Okay, this one looks good. I can just make this a bit bigger. So I've got my questions over here. I've got the answers, and it's telling me which answer is the correct one. Let's quickly see if this is right. Disney created it. Yes, number 1 is right. Number 2, Minnie Mouse. Yes. Okay, so this looks like it's the correct answer. So I can now just copy these questions over into our original Kahoot worksheet, and then I can upload it to Kahoot to make it into a quiz. So now we've got it in the Kahoot template, and so if we save this and go back to Kahoot, I can now upload it in here. And here we have our Kahoot that we can play with our class. In this case, it's only given me 6 questions, so I should, or even just 5 questions, I should have specified how many I want. So with 5 questions, I could have probably written it myself quicker, even though it would probably take me a while to come up with the questions. But if I have 20 questions or 30 questions, then it's definitely much quicker to do it with Code Interpreter. And just for language teachers, here is my prompt, how I have adapted it, namely each question should be a translation from English to German, and the 4 answers should be in German with only one of them spelled correctly. So you can even create a quiz where it is all about the spelling, and then you can paste in the vocabulary list at the end and actually test students on the words that they have practiced. So this is what it put out for the spelling test. As you can see, so here are the English questions or the English words, and then it has put out all these German words, but all spelled slightly incorrectly. But the first one is pretty easy because there is a capital S in it, but the other ones, it has done quite a good job at making them kind of look likely but not correct. I also wanted to show you some of the few smaller kind of image things that ChatGPT can do now with Code Interpreter. So for example, it can now create QR codes. So if you just put in create a QR code for, and then the website, it will spit out this QR code, and I can just right click on it and copy the image or save the image to share with someone. Another fun little thing is that it can now create word clouds. So if I put in create a word cloud and then lots of text, which in this case is the article on butterflies from Wikipedia, or at least some of it, because you can't put in too much. So here we've got our nice word cloud. So whichever word comes up the most in text is bigger. So obviously butterflies is very big here, insect is big, and so on. And the other words are smaller. So that's just a fun little thing. One image feature that is very, very useful to teachers is that it can now do OCR, meaning text recognition from an image. For example, I'm in my German textbook here, and I want to maybe do a task on this reading task here. So what I can do is I'm using the snipping tool in Windows, which you get with Shift, Windows key, and S. So I'll do a frame around here. And now I got a notification over there. I can open up my snipping tool or my snip and sketch, and I can now save it. And now I go back into Code Interpreter and I upload my screenshot. Code Interpreter is a little bit reluctant sometimes to get the text of this, so you need to remind it that it can do OCR. So try to use the word OCR in your command, because otherwise it will say it can't read the text. So if I just say what is on this picture, or tell me the text on this picture, it often will say I can't see the picture. So use OCR. A prompt is, can you OCR the text on this image? Not only has it given me the complete text of this screenshot, but it is also summarizing it in English here. And looking at it, it seems to be very good. So I can't see any weird characters in it, for example, that I wouldn't expect. One problem is that it has kept the line break in there, which in this case I don't really want. So I could prompt it to just say get rid of the line breaks. But apart from that, it looks pretty good. And the big advantage of doing OCR with ChatGPT or with Code Interpreter is that if there are problems in it and you can see that there are, for example, words missing or not spelled correctly, you can just ask it to proofread this text and fill in any gaps with words that make sense, or to correct capital letters, for example. So it's a really useful tool. And also now I've got the text in here, so I can then ask lots of follow-up questions like make me content questions about this, make this into a gap fill text, and so on. Okay, seeing that we're talking about images, let's also see just a quick example of what it can do with image editing. So let's say you want to create a little slideshow out of some pictures that you've got. The problem is with Code Interpreter, you can only upload one file at a time. So either you upload all the images individually, or you create a zip folder and then you can upload the zip folder. So that is actually the easiest way. So for example, over here I've got a number of images that I want to turn into a slideshow, so I can just select some of them. I right click and then I can say send to compressed zipped folder. So if I do that, I end up with a zip folder like this, which I can then put over into ChatGPT. So I've already done that here. It's read all the different images that are in there, and then it has put out a little video for me. Here we go, we've got all our images in a nice little GIF file. It can actually do a lot more with images. It can change the color, it can crop an image to be a certain size, it can invert them, but I think that would fill a whole other video, and it's maybe not the main focus for a teacher. But if you've got any great ideas how to use image editing, then let me know in the comments. Another two areas that Code Interpreter is apparently even more amazing at than ChatGPT 4 are math and coding. I'm not a specialist in those areas, so I think I'm going to leave those areas to other people to explore. Just be aware that it can now display math formulas as images, which is very helpful. Here's a math example. I mean, I've just put in show me a long fraction just to show it off, and you can see here that it has produced this as this image, and it would then be able to do all kinds of math with this. It is also much better at coding, mainly due to the fact that it can now take several steps by itself without having to be prompted in between. So it can do a whole debugging process on its own now, and then put out much better code than it was able to before. Okay, I hope this has given you lots of ideas how you can use Code Interpreter in your working life or just for fun. If you have got any other great ideas how teachers can use Code Interpreter, put them in the comments, and also check out my blog if you want to be able to copy and paste some of the prompts that I've used.